Okay, hello everybody. Um, okay, so good afternoon, good night, everybody. So today we are here to start our fifth discussion forum. I am particularly very excited for this topic. So while we are waiting for everybody to join the meeting, I'm going to start with a very brief introduction. So I hope that you follow this recommendation, especially um, as you know, this discussion forum will be in English. So uh, something that helps a lot is like to activate a subtitle option in Zoom. Okay, so this is Qhali Peru, our study group in dental public health. Our mission is to promote the specialty of dental public health among undergraduate and graduate dentistry students from Peru, as well as to contribute to the development of their skills as researchers in this area, to generate spaces for scientific dissemination, and in a long term to propose interventions to improve the oral health and reduce inequities. Our vision is to be a solid group with members from all Peruvian regions and dental public health researchers from different parts of the world who collaborate with each other for their development as researchers and to generate or improve oral health interventions among the Peruvian population. So today we will have a discussion forum. The discussion forum is one of our main activities in our, sorry. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. I don't know what
Yes,
happened.
we can.
Hi. Okay, I don't know why my screen stopped. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, but as I was explaining to you, it's like this is our discussion forum, and I'm going to briefly explain the aim of this activity. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Oh, what is this? Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So the aim of this discussion forums is to increase the knowledge of basic dental public health concepts and the awareness of the existence of this discipline among undergraduate and graduate dentistry students from Peru. And also from other countries, we hope to more students from different or from other countries also can join our study group and also join these discussion forums. So for this year, we have organized 6 discussion forums. Since May, we organized these discussion forums about different interesting topics related with basic dental public health concepts. And today we have our 5th discussion forum about assessing risk for oral diseases at the individual and population level. So these are some memories of our previous discussion forums. This one, so after each discussion forum, also the group that was in charge of the organization of each of these discussion forums created as a summary different infographic and videos that are already published in our social media. So today we have the pleasure to present and to start this discussion forum about assessing risks for oral diseases at the individual and population level. The chair is Faraz Moharrami, and I'm very happy to share all of these ideas and theories and concepts and discuss about this topic with all of you. So before we introduce Faraz, I'm going to introduce Xiomara. Xiomara Alva is the discussion forum coordinator. So thank you, first of all, Xiomara, for having the time to organize this forum. I know that you're in Germany now, and it's like almost 1 a.m. there. So Xiomara is a last year student of dentistry at the university in Germany. She also participated in the Global Oral Health Education program at the University of Glasgow Dental School in 2021. And she also participated representing her university from Peru, Universidad San Martín de Porres, and her country at the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP26 to consider oral health in the context of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So thank you again, Xiomara, for being here and for organizing this forum with the study group. So now uh, it's your turn to introduce Faraz.
Thank you so much. First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, here it's almost 2 a.m., but
Oh
I'm
my
very
God.
happy to be with all of us. And thank you, Dr. Camila and Dr. Mohammed, for your time and being with all of us. So we will start right now. Faraz Moharrami. It's was his first Faraz was first exposed to research through conducting this DDS thesis on pain perception and quality of life in EMD patients at Tehad University of Medical Science in Iran on a path to becoming a clinician scientist. He contributed to several interdisciplinary projects aiming at determining the association between oral and general health to promote personality and medicine. To continue his journey, he moved to Canada and enrolled in the MSc program in medical science at the University of Alberta. Interested in clinical and epidemiological studies, he then joined the Faculty of Dentistry at the University of Toronto in 2021 to start a PhD in dental public health. His project revolves around developing models to predict the risk of osteoarthritis necrosis of the jaw in head and neck cancer patients using machine learning approaches. So thank you so much, Dr. Faraz, for being with all of us. We are very grateful.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Next one, please.
Okay, so before we start the discussion, I haven't prepared much of a presentation to provide a room for discussion. I guess it's better this way, like if you wanna get into detail about the risk assessment for oral disease. These 4 papers I provided, I thought of them as a best maybe a starting point if someone interested to embark in this path, if interested in risk assessment in general and specifically risk assessment in dentistry. They are good starting points. One of them, sick individuals and population, is like a 38-year-old kind of a paper. It's a classical paper in dental public health. People in dental public health program usually read this and discuss this paper. So I thought it is outdated, and I will mention and discuss some of its drawbacks and how the other papers maybe can build upon that. Then there is a paper, Precision Dentistry, what is it, very false, and how to get it there. It's from a researchers in Germany, Falk Schwandijk. And these people are kind of pioneer in risk prediction in dentistry, specifically in caries research. And they are doing a lot of machine learning stuff, machine learning prediction, modern biostatistic, and also economic evaluation. They are the forefront in WHO, and also they are leading the group in IADR. So it's a good introduction narrative review. If you are interested in this type of topic, want to know more about it, it's a good starting point. Then there are 2 papers which are about tripod statement, which is transparent reporting of multivariable prediction model for individual prognosis and diagnosis. So these 2 resources are the most usually guidelines for reporting the studies that try to do risk assessment, not in dentistry, but in general. And from 2015, any researcher in the world want to do some type of multivariate analysis, use this kind of a framework for reporting. It is very comprehensive, discuss different approaches for model development and validation. So I guess these are the, again, good starting points if anyone interested in this field, because it is on its own is like a PhD studying risk prediction. It is not only confined to dentistry, it is the most maybe important part of epidemiological studies in general in medicine. So if you want to get expert in this stuff, if you want to do it maybe in future, if it's something you're interested, you can start by this. Then there are a lot of programs in different universities around the world that provide, more detailed experience about this. So just keep the ball rolling. I don't want to just, talk like a lecture here or, like a classical presentation. I just provide a little summary of risk prediction in general and then in dentistry, and then we can open the floor to questions and discussions. So when it comes to risk prediction of oral diseases or any condition in medicine or epidemiology, it is first important to understand what is risk. When we want to determine the risk of something, what are we talking about? So in very, very simple term, it is the chance of something happening. And it is happening in two levels. One of them is population, one of them is individual. In population, it is a straightforward. When you say what is, for example, the risk of dental caries, what you mean is incidence of dental caries in a specific period of time, which is usually 1 year. So when you say what is the risk of dental caries in population like Canada, you mean what is the incidence of dental caries in the next year, which is usually formatted in percentage. Like you can say the risk of new dental caries in Canada, I'm just making up numbers here, estimate, like 10%. And it can be different from population to population. And then there is a risk for one individual. For example, you can say the risk for Faraz is 50% in the next year, for Dr. Diego is 0%. So how to get from that 10% to this individual is a science on its own. This is where prediction modeling come, multivariate modeling come. Like in traditional statistics, you used to do it with logistic regression, linear regression. Nowadays, they do it using machine learning. So then we can talk a little bit about those technicalities. And it can be differences between population and population as well. For example, you say incidence of risk in Canada is 10%. In another country in Europe, maybe it is 20%. And what the first paper, Sick Individuals and Sick Population by Geoffrey Rose talks about is this idea. When you want to measure the risk of something within a population, within a cohort, within a hospital, like anything, you're usually doing case control studies and you're stratifying risk based on the known risk factors within that population. For example, in Canada, you can say people that smoke, people that use alcohol, people that do not brush their teeth, maybe they have the higher risk of developing dental caries. The same thing may be true for UK in Europe. But so the point, I'm just trying to clarify the point of this. So what differentiates or separates UK from Canada? It is the risk factors you cannot see within the population. For example, again, it's like a made up example. The level of water the level of fluoride in water. Maybe naturally water in Canada has 0.7 ppm, while in UK it has 0.8. So you cannot control for this fluoride as a risk factor within Canadian population or within UK population, but you can make comparison between the two population based on this risk factor. So this is the essence of the content in this sick individual and sick population. And Geoffrey Rose claims that because we cannot or we are not aware of the risk factors that impact the whole population, whatever we do inside the population does not shift the risk distribution significantly. For example, let's say the whole population smokes, but you do not know about so when the whole population smokes, you cannot change it within that population. So for example, you cannot say that if we change alcohol consumption, the dental caries will improve or not, because the smoking is in there. So you have not done anything regarding the smoking, which is impacting the whole population. So the population level approach here is that to do the, in some sense, revolutionary or very fundamental change in terms of behavior of the population. If you do not do that, it doesn't matter what you do within the population. I just hope it makes sense. Just wanted to provide some background regarding what the paper talked about, then we can go into the question. The next paper, Precision Dentistry, is like a modern paper published recently. It has a different approach. It says that we cannot go with the one solution for all. And the reason they bring this up is that you have limited resources, and with limited resources, you cannot invest on the whole population. So what you can do is that you're saying you have 10% of risk of dental caries, and from that 10% you start. So that's your starting point, the 10% dental caries. Then you condition it on the risk factor or characteristics of the people. You say that people age above 50 has 80% risk of dental caries, people below age of 20 at 20% risk. Then you say within that senior groups, people that smoke have a higher risk. Then within those people that are seniors and smoking, there are people that drink. So you just break it down, you break it down, you break it down until a point you reach an individual. For example, you have 20 risk factor, and you can specifically say that this individual has, for example, 80% of risk of providing dental caries. The other person is young, does not smoke, does not use alcohol, has 0%. And then they talk about how we can get there from that 10% to that individual risk. And they talk about the availability of the data, new technology, and a new computational power, new approaches like, again, machine learning. And the two other papers, tripod transparent reporting of multivariate prediction models for individual prognosis or diagnosis, provide a frame to reach that individual risk prediction, like going from that 10% of population developing dental caries to saying that a specific person, for example, Faraz or Diego, provide provide dental caries or not. So that's all about maybe summary of the papers, like a quick snapshot of what's going on. And it was also a good opportunity for me. I haven't read this paper for a long time, so I had an opportunity to review them. Just one thing before we go into question sections and maybe discussion. It is important to understand the difference between two concepts, which is the first one is prediction or risk predicting something. And the second one is determining the association between two things. And these are completely different things. In the paper by Falk Schwandijk and the two other papers, Tripod, they're trying to emphasize on this point. So when we say the association or the relationship between predictor and outcome, the example is that when you smoke, you have 2 times chance of developing dental caries or periodontal disease compared to person do not smoke. But that does not tell you the specific risk for that individual. So it doesn't tell you if the person that smoke has 80% of chance of developing dental caries or periodontal disease, or it is 30% of chance of developing dental caries or periodontal disease. And right now, 90% of the research publication in dentistry and to some extent in medicine is about determining the association between a specific risk factor and a specific outcome. And it is important to differentiate between these two concepts because when it comes to validation of the models, you have different approaches. When you come to evaluating the performance of these two type of models, you have different approaches. When you want to tune the models for each of these purposes, you have different approaches. And this is something it is important to keep in mind and just be careful when you're reading specific papers in the literature.
Well, before we go with the questions, thank you for us for this brief summary and for highlighting some important concepts and considerations. So, so now Xiomara is going to start the questions that the group already did. But if there is anybody here who wants to do another question, please feel free to write it in the chat. And Xiomara will also share your questions, opinion, comments. This is an opportunity to share, discuss about this topic. So please feel free to write it in the chat or turn on your how do you say, your microphone to speak. So yes, I only wanted to emphasize this detail. So okay, Xiomara, okay, let it go.
Okay, so first about sick individuals and sick population. First question is
Yeah, I guess Stefania was disconnected.
Yeah,
I can read the question until
okay.
Stefania comes back.
Okay.
So just before going to this, another point that is of high important and it was emphasized in the paper I shared is to know the type of prediction. When we say the risk prediction, we have 2 main type of risk prediction. One of them is diagnosis, the other is prognosis. And when we talk about diagnosis, it means that something happens now, like you have a bunch of risk factors, you have a bunch of risk indicators, you put them together and you have a tool. And based on this tool, you can say the risk of dental caries at this time point is, for example, 70% or 80% for a specific individual. And nowadays, when we talk about diagnosis, it is mostly based on unstructured data. And when we talk about unstructured data, we mean something that is not tabular, like it is not in form of Excel or CSV. The examples are image, text, voice, those type of things. So this is like the current status of the or where the research is right now. The other branch of prediction is prognosis, and prognosis means that something happened in future, and here you have element of time. For example, for cancer patient, you have bunch of risk factors, and based on these bunch of risk factors, you want to say in 5 years time point if they develop head and neck cancer or not. And this is important again because there are different techniques, there are different algorithms, and there are different ways to approach these type of problems. So again, this is something maybe important to keep in mind. I don't know if Stephanie came back or not, but the first question is that in the prevention of oral disease efforts, which strategies has been largely used? Up to my knowledge, in terms of population level approach, the most successful one was water fluoridation, which is something that can impact the whole population, and it was super rewarding. We can see how the distribution of the dental caries have changed before and after implementing water fluoridation in whatever countries that it has been implemented. Don't want to go into a lot of details about water fluoridation, but there are a mountain of research about how it was useful. And there are some limitations in terms of methodology of the researchers that's conducted, but overall, generally, it was a successful experience. So this is maybe the most important population level. And for the high risk approach, you can find many, many examples from educating the patients in the office, behavioral therapy like brushing your teeth, stop smoking cigarettes, or silent therapy for high-risk individual or high-risk children. So these are the most common type of maybe preventions that were successful during the previous decades, but you can find a lot of examples. So Stephanie came back, or I can continue with.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, the connection here in Germany is so bad. Also, I'm with my all internet, but it's going not so good right now. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no worries.
Mhm.
So we covered the first question. We are on the second one.
Yeah, so I only wanted to add if if there is somebody who wants to add a comment on this first question, like on what Faraz was explaining, if there is any other experience that you may read or any other type of intervention strategy that you that you know that is happening in the region or in the place where you are living, because I think that one of the things that we have to also differentiate in this part is like the high risk and population strategies, right? For us, like the difference between these two type of strategies. So would you like any here in is there any in the audience who would like to add anything else about this first question before we continue with the next one? Okay. So if okay, everything is okay. So okay, Xiomara, you can continue with the following questions.
Okay, following question is number 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the limitations of high risk strategy for the prevention of dental caries?
So based on the papers of Jeffrey Rose, and it is important whenever you read a paper, there are a lot of how do you say, editorial comments or critics around that paper that is influential. So Jeffrey Rose paper is influential, and there are, during the decades, there were advocates for this paper, and there were people that disagree with these people. So it is also important to read those papers to get familiar with the concepts and the discussion during the past decades. But in terms of what is the limitation of high-risk strategy, the most important one is maybe that based on Geoffrey Rose, you don't address the causal risk factor. Again, let's say the example of smoking. Let's say the whole population smoke, and the high-risk approach cannot or does not have the ability to know that this is the smoking that caused the problem periodontal disease. Because when you do the case control study, you need heterogeneity of the risk factor. And if you do not have the heterogeneity of the risk factor, you cannot determine the role of risk factor. It's like an umbrella thing on the whole population that you cannot see. So you may address other problems regarding periodontal diseases like diet, like alcohol consumption, but you do not address the cause problem or the cause risk factor, which is smoking. So this is one of the problem or maybe critics regarding the high risk. The other important one during that time, what difficulties and costs related to a screening of the high risk group or patients. Today, like again, this paper was published 8 years ago, and back then you should consider what was the situation, the setting 40 years ago. There was no computer. When you wanted to calculate the risk of something, you need to use calculator, write on a piece of paper. There was not multivariate analysis in the extent we have it right now. If you wanted to predict risk of something, there was one risk factor, maybe two risk factor, then you could do cross tabulation or something like that. So there was not sophisticated model, there was no computation power, there was no data. And the most important thing, there was no any data. Nowadays, you can address this limitation that's raised by Geoffrey Rose by the vast amount of data you have, and it's producing more and more, and also by computation power, and also by new algorithms like machine learning. So assessing the risk for a specific group or individual has improved a lot during the past 4 decades. By the time Geoffrey Rose wrote this paper, it was like 10% of the people have chance of dental caries, and it was super difficult to say if a specific individual have a higher risk or lower risk. So that is another maybe difficulties with high risk, but it is, as I said, is going to be addressed nowadays.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not going through all of the limitations because I know we have a lot of questions. We want to be able to cover all of the points, but if you want to discuss more regarding any points, we can, continue the discussion.
Okay, no one questions. So for the question number 3, it seems that a combination of the high risk direct population approach is the best option, but it could be particularly challenging when researchers are limited. Disease is widely dispersed, and other social, cultural, and political factors have to be considered, especially in developing countries. Therefore, what recommendations could be given?
It's a good question, but so there is no easy answer to it. One approach, I guess it was discussed during your previous discussion forums, is focusing on common risk factors because, you have limited resources, you don't have enough money to do whatever you want to do, whatever intervention you want to do to improve oral health. So what you can focus is common risk factor between oral disease and other disease, which might be of more importance for policymakers like diabetes. So that's one thing. Regarding the population approach, maybe other people have better examples, but the only successful approach I know that widely used in different countries is water fluoridation. The other maybe is providing dental coverage or health coverage as a whole, like universally. But again, there are a lot of problems regarding implementing or feasibility of population level approach, because you deal with the whole population, everyone has different mindset. And so it is, first of all, difficult to persuade everyone in a given population to agree with your approach. And even if you can do that, you need a lot of resources, funding, and wealth to implement it. So that's why the most of the interventions in the past decades and even nowadays based on high risk, and there are advocates for this type of approach, specifically with the recent innovation as we discussed. But if anyone has better examples, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have a better example. I just wanted to emphasize this is a very hard question because it's very contextual, right? Like it would also depend on like it says, the question says that it's particularly challenging. I didn't write the question. I just want to say that, but it says that it's particularly challenging when resources are limited. So, like, how limited and what resources are limited? Because there are so many different types of resources, and this is why dispersed. But among who is it dispersed? Then it says that there are social, cultural, and political factors that have to be considered. Absolutely, but what is it that makes it, like, what are the barriers that we are facing, and that this is especially is considered especially in developing countries, so or low and middle income countries. So I think, I mean, as you said, water fluoridation is a big one. The only thing I could add to that is salt fluoridation that has been used in a lot of little middle income countries, such as Peru. Water fluoridation was tried for 4 months and then stopped because it could not be maintained. The infrastructure could not be maintained. It's very complex question, I think, and I guess that question alone could end up being a huge our conversation. But I don't know. I was going to do you like a follow-up question on that. So in Iran, what measures do you use to counter dental disease?
So in Iran, it's mostly like they mostly follow the WHO recommendation to bring the prevention to the primary care, first of all. And we also have water fluoridation as well. And it is not in all provinces, but in most provinces, we have water fluoridation in terms of like population level approach. We do not have much taxation, so it's not like you have tax on, I don't know,
Sugar.
Smoking or sugar, something like that, because taxation is not very well funded. So I guess this is different because, for example, in Canada, if you want to persuade people not to smoke or, use less amount of sugar, one thing you can do is, tax this type of product. But for us, it is mainly maybe based on education on the high risk level, which is found to be ineffective.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's not a specifically oral health intervention, but talking about this common risk factor approach, I'm not sure if this is a population approach, but for example, this the labeling, like the octagons for unhealthy food, but one of these octagons that are related with high sugar, that indicate a very high sugar of the products. That so we have like this policy, I'm not sure if it's correct the word, this policy in Peru to labeling all the products that contains high amount of salt or sugar or fat. So if we only focus on the part of the sugar, like try to kind of reduce the sugar consumption. It's not like oral health focus, but in a way try to help also to that. So is this also, it could be called like a population intervention approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like in which geographic region you implement that. If it's like a national wide thing,
Yeah, it's like a national policy. So all the products that contains like high levels of sugar, salt, or fat has to be labeled with a black octagon that indicate it contains a high amount of sugar or a high amount of salt or something like that. So, but I think that it's a challenge to measure how this strategy is really reducing the consumption of this unhealthy food. But I think that maybe could be an example for a strategy using the population approach, because it's targeting like all the population. So everybody will see these labels in all the products. It's not oral health focus, but I think that if we think about this common risk factor approach, try to reduce the sugar consumption that cause dental caries, for example.
yeah, I guess that's a great point. It can be one of the example, but in terms of how impactful it was, I'm not sure if it's well documented in the literature.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you also, because at the beginning you mentioned that we don't have a lot of evidence about which are the risks of stuff that the oral health diseases. So also, how can we do an intervention using the high risk approach if the evidence is limited on these aspects, right? We have most of the research is based on associations, but not exactly on the risk factors. So yeah, so it's kind of difficult to think about also high risk about interventions using this high risk approach because of that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So there are ways to do that. So if you, for example, do randomized clinical trial between high risk and low risk, and the way you build a model, so it gets a little technical. This intervention itself is only one of the factors that contribute to overall prediction. Let's say you have a population and they have 50% chance of developing periodontal disease. Then you implement, let's say, a smoking cessation or taxation or something, only if it's possible. I mean, it's not feasible in the real world. In part of the population, so part of the population are taxed on their smoking, the other part is not. Then after this taxation, after a year, you again come build your model using the previous 20 risk factors, which can be age, sex, smoking habits, socioeconomic, like whatever. And you just add this one little piece, which is taxation on smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Then you compare how the overall risk in each group change. The group that was taxed, it may change from 50% to 60%. Sorry, it can lower and reduce from 50% to 40%. The other group remains the same, almost the same. Then you can say that, okay, this taxation contributed to 10% risk reduction. But it needs to be a multivariate model, and the way you calculate these estimates again is different, because when you do the analysis, if you do the predictor and outcome or association, you may say that the taxation, the people who were taxed are 3 times less likely to develop dental caries. That is what you get from association. You see that, okay, they are 3 times less likely to get this. But when you look at this multivariate model that produce this probability, you see only this is the reduction from 50% to 40%. I don't know if I could imply what I wanted to say, because it needs a lot of, how do you say it, familiarity with development of and validating this type of model, so you can build the intuition around that, the differences.
Yeah, yeah. The models that you are talking about are these models that use like the causal inference theories, like the DAX, this kind of,
No, actually, they are different.
or it's
The
one of model.
yeah, the model itself, maybe you use logistic regression, but the way you build that logistic regression, the way you validate it, and the way you evaluate its performance is different. For example, if you want to evaluate the performance in terms of association between risk factor and outcome, you report odds ratio. You say, okay, the odds of, having this disease, if you smoke or not smoke, is this. If you want to evaluate the performance in terms of risk prediction, which is probability, you have R square, or you have MSC, or you have area under the curve. So there are different concepts and different way of how you use the model. And that is not what you see in the literature right now.
Yeah,
Again, sorry, and sorry to cut it. And that's why I provided this tripod paper. These are the good starting point to build intuition around what is the differences between these two concepts.
yeah, and it's very challenging, right? We need more training, or at least collaboration with the people who already know and are working on these topics, because yeah, it's something that personally I don't know, like I don't know how to do this type of analysis, but it's important. So more academic collaborations have to be done, and if somebody is interested on this topic, uh, then at the end, maybe Faraz, you can share like your experience with type of academic opportunities we can search, like to learn about machine learning, prediction models, all of these topics that are very relevant.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. I guess we already maybe
Yeah.
answered question 4. So for sake of time, if you want, we can go to other questions.
All right. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to skip the next slide. All right.
Okay, so with this topic, precision dentistry, what it is, where it fails, and how to get there. Question number 1, what do you need to achieve universal data availability and linkage before precision dentistry may become a reality? Where should we start?
So there are a lot of things, again, very broad and maybe difficult question. Maybe it needs 1 hour just to discuss about it. But one thing important, like dentistry compared with medicine, is that if you want to do data linkage, if you want to pull data from different centers in institute, pull it together, have a huge data set to build the, these prediction models that needs a lot of data, the first thing is that you should have a standard treatment codes and disease codes. Right now, we have some treatment codes, but they are not as standard as the way they use it in medicine. And in terms of disease code, it is far from perfect. So maybe the first step is that you have these codes. For example, when you talk about dental caries, you know exactly what are you talking about. Like when you talk about periodontal disease, you know what you're talking about, and other people talk about the same concept using that standard coding. If you have that and it is widely used in different centers, then you can use it to link the data. The other thing that is important is the safekeeping of the data. So here encryption is important. There were some advancement in terms of encryption. There is a concept called federation analysis. That means that you don't need to borrow data from different centers, put it together. You can have a model and do your analysis in where the data is being held. So again, there are a lot of details about any of these concepts, like federated, which is very interesting approach used nowadays. Again, if you're interested, there are some references in this paper you can follow up, and they give you more details about this.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Faraz. And question number 2, while precision dentistry is being developed like a prediction tool, what data of our patients we should register during the consult?
So again, it is important with advancements with this modern biostatistic machine learning to go with multimodal data. And multimodal data is that right now we're collecting data on things that we think are important. Like we think that smoking is important. We think that brushing your teeth is important. But they can be 1,000 other risk factors that are important, and we do not know they are important because nobody ever tested them, nobody ever collected data on them, and nobody ever thought they are important. So one thing is that we go with data collection systematically and not limit the data collection to one form of data, which is tabular. It is important to collect different type of data like image, like nowadays they use transcription of voices for, to see what is talk between patient and dentist, and to go through the doctor's notes using natural language processing. So previously it wasn't possible. Like you had a bunch of notes of the doctor and the conversation they had with patient, but to extract data from them, it was not possible. Nowadays it is with this kind of data mining approaches. So I guess that's a beginning, going multimodal and not restricting ourselves to data that we think are important.
Okay, and question number 3, what prediction models are most appropriate to achieve precision dentistry?
Again, very broad question. So in terms of if the question is that what algorithms or models is important, you can make a distinction between linear models and non-linear models. Up to this point, whatever, like 95% of the, again, literature are based on linear model. And when you say linear model, like linear regression, logistic regression, these are all linear. What it means that you assume that if you add risk factors together, you get to the prediction itself. For example, if you add age to sex, and if you add a score of smoking, income, dental coverage, by just adding them together, summing up, you have a score that predicts. But it turns out 95% 5% of maybe 90% of the literature based on linear regression analysis. But in reality, everything is nonlinear. And but nonlinear, it means that you cannot just sum stuff risk factors together and you say, okay, the probability of dental caries is 80%. Because what happens is that you see age is only important, for example, when you smoke. So if you're not non-smoker, age doesn't have anything to do with developing dental caries. Or when you have income up to $60,000 is important and it's predictive of your health. Above $60,000, it doesn't contribute. So right now with the type of model we have, like researchers use like regressions, linear and logistic, you cannot model this thing. The way to go with it is using nonlinear model, and nonlinear model is mostly using machine learning. The example is decision tree, random forest, neural networks. These are all nonlinear models that account for this type of, interaction between risk factors. So maybe one suggestion is to advocate for using nonlinear model, but if you want to move from linear to nonlinear, you need to develop some set of skills that usually are not that easy. So it takes time.
Next one, please. Okay, so maybe here I can read all the questions. So in one, to talk more about the theme is good, or question by question is better?
I guess maybe question by question, because then
Okay.
probably we forget what we talked about.
So yeah, in this case, question number one, how to achieve validation of prediction models using tripod?
So again, good question. Tripod lays a blueprint how to actually report the results, so you can use it as a proxy of to developing or doing your research. There are a lot of publications and tons of experience already available how to conduct this type of analysis and validation. But if I just want to give you a quick answer, it is important when you build a model in a specific population, you validate it, and by validating, we mean that evaluating its performance in a different population, like external population. Let's say you develop a model based on the data from a hospital or several hospitals, and you determine the performance or validate this model on a data coming from different hospitals. And the reason is that if you want to determine the performance of a model on a data set you build it leads to optimistic results. And it's always works good because there is a concept, they call it data leakage. And if the algorithms already exposed to the data it is trained on, it's always produce optimistic results. So you, first of all, to avoid this bias, you need to use external data. And this external data, because it has different distribution of the risk factors, it gives you better understanding how your model performs in an unseen individual. So maybe it's just quickly about that, but there are a lot of things, consideration regarding validation.
Okay, and question number two, will it be essential to use tripods to carry out with good dental epidemiological research?
Again, it's just, so you have different things. You have guidelines for developing a study or conducting the study, and you have guidelines for reporting the studies. And these are two different things. Like you can use the tripod as a proxy of conducting, but there are other guidelines specific for a specific setting and your outcome of interest. But I guess, yes, tripod can help to some extent.
In question number 3, which suggestions toward improving the reproducibility of prediction modeling studies could be more widely adopted in oral health research?
So there are a lot of suggestions. If you want to reproduce something, you need to be able to include as much as risk factors or predictors as possible. And that's where the role of multimodal data become prominent. So if you can have a heterogeneous data, like a very rich data set, it can help with reproducibility of the model. And the other thing is that, again, find a way to standard data between different centers, between different population. For example, you build a model and one of your predictors is having dental insurance. But having dental insurance means something in Canada, it means something different in Peru, and it means something different in UK. So having dental insurance is not the same thing. So if you build a model in Canada, then you take that and use it in first, for example, in UK. And you use the same values for the predictors, let's say dental insurance. And you say, okay, in Canada, 40% of the population had dental insurance. In UK, again, 40% had dental insurance. But the model produced different probabilities for dental caries. And so there are a lot of reasons for this. But one of the reasons is that you're talking about different things. So again, a lot of things you can consider to increase or improve reproducibility. And I guess literature to some extent talked about this. Yeah.
Okay, and the other question, should a tripod checklist be applied to new research studies?
I'm not sure if I totally understood the question, but yes, of course, like it is the state of the art. Whoever right now like produce a report or conducting the research and want to report their findings, use this framework. It's like a consort for randomized clinical trial. So it's like analogous to that. So the same way you use consort for reporting randomized clinical trial, if you have a prediction model for individual, you need to use tripod.
Question number 5, should the tripod checklist be provided that reviewers and readers for the assessment for this of the studies reporting transparency?
Yeah, actually, some journals use it. So, and they ask the authors to provide this checklist. Like this, I think it's 22 or 24. I cannot remember. It's like a 24-item checklist, and they ask them to specifically mention how they address each of the items. So some journals do, some journals do not, but it is becoming more prevalent.
Yes, so please the other question.
For reader.
Well,
And the last one is, I guess, comments, right? So
yeah, the last one it's a comment. I'm not sure if Beatrice, I think that you submit this comment. Would you like to share it with all of us? Or do you prefer that Xiomara can read it? But if you're here, please feel free to turn on your microphone and share your comment, and also share some of your thoughts about this. Not sure if it was Beatriz or Rosemary. or if not, Xiomara, I'm not sure if you can read it.
Yeah, sure. So the comment is, we just want to comment that, in effect, a study based on a literature search that was carried out in PubMed to identify oral health prediction modeling studies published in dental epidemiologic and biostatistical journals found out that, based on tripod, there was a general lack of transparent reporting across the studies.
Yes, I guess they have reported on several systematic reviews as part of their 70-page article that there were lack of transparency of reporting on how the researcher develop and validate their risk prediction model, and that's why they started this project, tripod project, to kind of standardize the way people report on their paper. So yeah, I guess that concludes that.
Yeah.
Just yeah,
Sorry,
sorry, go ahead.
only if there is any other questions, we can conclude it with these the key messages. Is there any other question, comment?
I have a comment.
Maybe Diego, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just a comment on the questions, because I think they are really good. I think they are very interesting questions that made Mr. Faraz think a lot and develop his answers. I am really I just wanted to make a shout out to the persons who were making the questions. I think many of these questions can be turned into a research question or to something to develop more. And if you're interested in this, you already read it and you have this curiosity, then you can knock on Faraz's door and probably get more more information on that and write something about it, because I think that these are really good questions that are to be explored. And as Faraz was saying, Geoffrey Rose's paper of 1985 is quite some time ago, so pretty refreshing to be contextual on what's happening now.
Yes, thank you. I agree, like great questions, and we didn't have much more time to discuss them in detail, and I don't want to make you confused, or maybe you didn't totally grasp of some ideas. Don't be worried. It's really difficult to form intuition regarding the differences between this concept, specifically between prediction and association, or predictor and outcome. For me, it wasn't easy when I started this line of research. It took me maybe 6 months to really understand what's going on, because for the past, I don't know, for my education for the past 10 years, whatever we did was about determining association and relationship. And this type of approach, looking at things, prediction, it's coming from different realm of a study, field of studies. It's coming from mostly computer science. And maybe here it is important to mention that if you want to embark in this type of field of research, there are two ways to do it. Traditionally, there were epidemiologists who used to do this type of analysis, mostly associations. And right now they're gearing more towards prediction. And by epidemiologists, when we say, we mean biostatistician. If you want to look it in a job title, as a job title, it is biostatistician, epidemiologist. Then you had another paradigm of research, or maybe activities that come from computer science, and they call this data science. And people doing this type of modeling, they call them data scientists. And these two paradigm of research or activity right now crossing over each other, like by crossing over, I mean like they're meeting each other. And there are people from biostatistics, traditional statistics, going to data science, and people from data science coming to biostatistics. And there are two different worldviews. And right now they are trying to merge their experiences. So maybe a contextualized background about what's going on here. And if you want to embark on this kind of, I don't know, journey or job or activity in future, what you can expect and what type of people you can expect to collaborate with.
Thank you, Faraz, for your comments, for your recommendations too. This was a very interesting forum. So I think that if there is anything else to add or to comment, and also because of time, I wanted to thank you in name of all the group. Thank you for your outstanding contribution as an expert in our dental public health study group, Qhali Peru. Your dedication and experience have been fundamental for the growth and learning of our members about dental public health. We sincerely appreciate your commitment and unconditional support, and we hope to continue counting on your valuable collaboration in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so as a tradition of our study group, we would like to have a picture with all the members who are still here. Oh, I'm not sure if Xiomara is still here because of her internet connection, but if you can turn on your cameras to have a final picture. And also, I have an announcement before everybody leave, because we have a special guest here who is called Jimena. Jimena is from an Dental Public Health Association here in Peru. And so then Jimena can introduce herself to. Hi, Jimena. So, so before I can introduce a little bit more about Jimena, let's have a picture. So please, everybody, turn on your cameras. Beatriz, Abigail, Jessica, Stephanie, Rosemary, Vanessa. Beatriz, you're here. I know that your internet was not very good, but thank you for all your questions. Also, thank you to David and Rosemary for all your questions. Were very interesting for the discussion of today. Okay, so hey, Jessica. Oh, hi, Vanessa. Stephanie and Abigail are available for open their cameras and having the picture, or maybe only between us. Okay, so Jessica, is it possible that you can take the picture? We cannot hear you, but let us know to be ready with a very big smile. Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody. We are going to take a picture. So I'm going to count to 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, listo.
Thank you for us. Thank you for everybody to be here. Oh, Xiomara is already here. Oh my god. For Xiomara, it's almost 3 a.m. I think. Oh my god. Yeah, in Germany it's super late.
Good morning, Xiomara.
Xiomara, are you here? Xiomara, we already have a
I'm
picture.
here. I'm so
We need to
sorry.
take
Connection
another
here is so
picture.
bad.
Don't worry. Yeah, let's have another picture with Xiomara, please.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah,
So,
we're going to have another picture with you.
Oh, oh, okay.
Okay, so sorry. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
All right.
Ya está.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank
so
you for wait and to
don't
the photo
worry.
again.
No. So before we leave the session, I only wanted to introduce you, Jimena. Jimena, would you like to introduce yourself to the group, also to Faraz?
Yes, good night. Thank you. The information shared in the forum has been very interesting, but I will speak in Spanish because it will take longer in English
Okay.
and it's late for everyone. Bueno, yo como parte de la Asociación Peruana de Odontología Preventiva y Social quería compartirles, ¿puedo compartir pantalla?
Sí.
Una invitación especial a un evento que va a ser a fin de mes y también como parte del grupo que están formando ahora, darles un precio especial al mismo tiempo para que se animen a participar del curso, porque el curso tiene un trasfondo importante, que es que a través de esto podamos pues comenzar a organizarnos todas las partes que quieran, sin importar pues qué institución sea o que a dónde pertenezcas en sí, pero si quieres que la salud bucal del país mejore, comenzamos a unir pues fuerzas y construir estos cimientos pues tan necesarios. El curso es se llama Salud Bucal desde la infancia para un Perú más saludable porque tiene esa visión de que sea parte de comenzar a armar un programa, próximo plan de acción a nivel nacional, eh, de una manera pues holística, ¿no? Uniéndonos pues no solamente a algo odontológico, ¿no? Unirnos en general las iniciativas que hay de salud del país y a todo el sistema también de salud del país. Los expositores son estas dos personas que tienen ya mucha experiencia en cuanto a estrategias de salud bucal, empezando desde la infancia, no necesariamente como algo de odontopediatría, ¿no? Sino que empezando pues viendo durante todo el curso de vida, pues y empezando desde el inicio de la vida. Eh, la programación está aquí, le voy a mandar el enlace de repente Cami también ya lo ha compartido, pero quería comentarles que, bueno, estos son los precios, que podemos igual dejarlo un poco más barato, sin importar pues si son asociados, estudiantes de periodo, o sea, sin importar la categoría, puede ser 60 soles. Eh, y solamente para validar la inscripción, con decir que vienen del grupo Qhali, o si ustedes quieren recomendarle a alguien también el curso, también con que digan que vienen de parte del grupo de Qhali es suficiente, yo lo voy a informar para que lo tomen en consideración. Y el precio más que todo es porque pues estamos incluyendo el almuerzo, los refrigerios porque es todo el día, el colegio odontológico donde es el local no es tan accesible, entonces para que no gasten nada más pues incluye todo eso, incluye un libro que les vamos a regalar que justamente Camila y Diego han participado. Es un libro muy importante porque incluye cosas muy básicas de salud pública. Entonces es como para pues poder compartir información básica entre todos y tener pues digamos que las ideas claras desde el inicio. Y aparte, bueno, incluye la certificación y algunos materiales que les vamos a dar para el curso. Entonces pueden pagarlo a través de un pago virtual, que ahora voy a poner una categoría más que diga Cali y pues no necesariamente pues tiene que ser específicamente Cali, puede ser que ustedes le pasen la información a alguien que sabe que les puede interesar y con que diga que viene de parte del grupo es suficiente. También está la cuenta aquí, pero hay que enviar a este correo la información, o sea, la inscripción para terminar de validar. O sea, el comprobante de pago y decir que vienen de parte de Cali. Con eso es suficiente y vuelvan a encontrar pues una categoría extra que voy a poner ahora. Y bueno, pues muchas gracias por la oportunidad también de compartir esta información y ojalá pues podamos también vernos ese día en el evento. También hay una categoría virtual, entonces también los que no puedan puede ser virtual.
Sí. Gracias, Jimena, por compartir la información. So now we're going to start continuing English. so, um, so yes, Jimena was sharing some information about an important home conference that we are going to have in Peru about dental public health. So, having this topic today with Faraz was also very helpful to start to understand this type of concepts, especially if we would like to develop any intervention. It's important to consider these aspects. So, well, thank you again for your time, for your thoughts, for all the knowledge that you share with us today. Thank you, Xiomara, for being here so late, and thank you for helping me to organize also this forum. So, okay, thank you everybody to be here. Thank you, Diego, thank you, Jimena, thank you everybody to be here. So see you in the next discussion forum. We have only one more discussion forum, and that's all for the year. So have a good night, everybody. Buenas noches, y ya nos vemos pronto.
Good night, good morning.
Good night.
Good morning, Xiomara.
Good morning.
Bye,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you
Bye-bye.
for joining today.